Hiya guys, welcome back to Wentworth Life, the YouTube channel that talks everything Wentworth. Welcome back to part 3 of my season 8 theory videos. If you haven't seen part 1 or part 2, then go back, watch those and then come back here. Just a reminder guys that this is literally just for fun. This is just some season 8 ideas that I feel could happen, probably won't happen, but you know, it's just a bit of fun. And I'm glad to see there's a lot of people enjoying it. I've also had a few questions and people have been asking me how many parts are they going to be. Well guys, there is going to be 5 parts to this fan fiction. So this is part 3 and let's crack straight on. So Ali is brought to medical for her checkup with Dr. Peterson. Dr. Peterson chats to Ali while she does the checkup. Dr. Peterson tells Ali that her blood pressure is a little bit high at the moment and asks if anything is wrong. Ali takes a liking to the new doctor and she tells her that she's been quite stressed out recently as she's been receiving threatening letters from an unknown person and that she isn't sleeping very well at the moment. Dr. Peterson tells Ali that it's quite normal to be stressed out and full of anxiety while this is happening. Dr. Peterson gives Ali some medication to help her sleep and calm her down. She tells Ali to take 1 tablet in the morning and 1 at night. Ali thanks the new doctor and heads back to her cell. Just what has Kate Peterson given to Ali? Back in protection, Mari digs out some bits of rotten meat that she's been hiding and she eats it to make herself sick. Ruby, still in the back of the van, is tied up, gagged and confused at what's happening and they're all heading for Queensland. Back in prison, as far as Rita's concerned, Ruby is now on the outside, making a new start on her life. Can anyone save Ruby at this stage? Frankie gets to know the newcomer Reb Keane. Reb tells Frankie that she hates the Screws and she hates the police. Frankie tells Reb that Ferguson is the ex-governor of Wentworth and that she wants to beat the truth out of Ferguson about being buried alive. Reb agrees to help Frankie take on Ferguson. So later on, Frankie and Reb sneak into Ferguson's unit, both armed with shivs. When Ferguson's back is turned, they make a grab onto Ferguson. Reb slaps Ferguson before holding her while Frankie aims her shiv in Ferguson's face, demanding that Ferguson tells Frankie the truth about being buried alive. Cass Parker arrives into the unit and sees what's happening. Parker completely loses her temper, not forgetting now that Parker has the strength of a man. She grabs Frankie and throws her out of the cell. Reb goes to punch Parker, but Parker gets the upper hand and punches Reb clean out in the face. Parker beats the crap out of Reb and Frankie tries to stop her, but Frankie gets thrown really hard against the wall. Mr. Jackson and a few officers arrive and stop Parker from doing any more damage. They take Parker to the slot and Ferguson demands to see Vera straight away. Ferguson tells Vera that Parker was protecting her from Frankie and Reb, and that she is the only person who can stop any of the women from getting to her. Vera goes to see Parker in the slot and Vera tells her that she has to try and get a grip on her temper, otherwise she is going to be spending a lot of time in solitary. Ferguson agrees to let Parker out in order to protect Ferguson, but under the proviso that she keeps a hold on her temper. Dr. Peterson is called into the protection block. A very sick Mari Winter is very ill, and Dr. Peterson checks her over. She tells the officers that Winter will have to come into the hospital wing to be put onto a drip and to be monitored. So Mari is taken to the hospital wing, but in her pocket is even more rotten meat, and she eats it when nobody is looking. Ruby arrives in Queensland and is locked in a basement. She tries calling out for help but there's nobody there to help her. Bridget and Boomer look after a battered Frankie. Bridget is angry that Frankie took on Ferguson, but Frankie tells Bridget that she has to try and clear both their names, and Ferguson is the only person who can do that. Rita tells Frankie and Reb to never do anything like that again without her say so. Reb gives Rita a bit of attitude and tells Rita that she will do whatever she wants. Rita gives Reb a stern warning. Dr. Miller wants to see his sister Reb Keane, so he requests to Vera that he has some sessions with her. Reb goes to his office and Dr. Miller tries to find out what's happened to his once sweet and kind adopted sister, who he hasn't seen for years. Reb gives him a load of attitude and literally tells him she doesn't need him in her life anymore, and that he is literally dead to her, and she leaves the room. Mari is getting worse in the hospital wing and is vomiting blood. Dr. Peterson orders that Mari is transferred to the hospital immediately. Miss Miles goes with her to the hospital. Ali still can't sleep. She's taken the pills that Dr. Peterson gave her, but they don't seem to be helping. While she's alone in the unit, she goes to make a cup of tea, but then she starts to hear voices coming from one of the cells. She goes and takes a look, and who does she see? She sees Kaz Proctor talking to Liz. Kaz and Liz turn around and look at Ali, and Ali starts freaking out. Is Ali starting to lose her mind, or is there something more sinister going on? Jake is currently in a very bad place. He meets up with his old drug pal Turk and begs Turk to sell him some gear. Jake is hitting rock bottom. He is banned from seeing his daughter, and Vera wants nothing more to do with him. Jake wants to get out of reality for a while, so Turk sells Jake some gear, and Jake gets off his face back in his flat. Back in the hospital, it's looking like that Mari Winter is going to be okay, and that she can go back to Wentworth in the morning. Mari needs to make her move quickly. She pretends that she's going to be sick, and Miss Miles grabs a bucket, but while her back is turned, Mari smashes Miss Miles over the head, managing to get the keys for the handcuffs. And Mari switches her clothes with Miss Miles. Mari escapes from the hospital dressed as an officer. She gets to a phone and contacts one of her men, who arrive and pick her up with a change of clothes. They set off for Queensland. Miss Miles is found on the floor and the alarm is raised. Mari Winter has escaped. Miss Miles is going to be okay, but she now has to explain to General Manager Anne Reynolds how this has happened. Ali goes to see Dr. Peterson again. She tells her that she is hearing voices and seeing her dead friends. Dr. Peterson calms Ali down and tells her that everything is going to be okay, and that she is just exhausted after the strain of the siege. Dr. Peterson ups Ali's dose of pills and sends her back to the wing. Later on, while Ali is trying to sleep, a hand touches her head. Ali opens her eyes and she looks up, and it's B looking down at her, smiling at Ali. In the moment, Ali smiles back at B, but then B's face starts to rot in front of Ali, and Ali jumps up screaming. Boomer runs in to see what the matter is, and Ali tells Boomer that she just saw B. Boomer hugs Ali and tells her that it was all just a bad dream. The next morning, Ferguson meets with her lawyer. Ferguson's trial date is set for her escape and the murder of B. Smith, but is now being changed to manslaughter. Ferguson is going down the route that she had to escape as her life was in danger, and that the previous general manager Channing was setting her up to be killed by the women. Ferguson is also going down the self-defense route over B. Smith, confirming that Officer Murphy let B out to try and kill her. Ferguson's lawyer thinks that they have a very good case ahead of them. Jake turns up to work looking worse for wear, popping pills in the staff room to keep him awake. While the police are out searching for Mari Winter, Mari is just arriving at Queensland, and she comes face to face with Ruby down in the basement. Ruby begs Mari to let her go. Mari tells her not a chance. Mari tells Ruby that she is going to die a slow and agonizing death. Mari is going to keep her alive as long as possible with no food and only water. And Mari is going to come down every day and watch her slowly rot to death. Nobody is going to help her this time. Ruby screams for help, but there is nobody to help. Mari holds a sinister smile while Ruby hauntingly cries for help. Jake continues to plead to Vera to let him see baby Grace, but Vera refuses. And Vera tells Jake that he is a mess and that his days as an officer at Wentworth are numbered. Jake continues on a downward spiral with the drugs. Frankie and Bridget take a cheeky shower together while it's empty. Just as they dry each other off and get dressed, they notice Ferguson just outside the shower block. They sneak to take a look at what's happening, and they see Ferguson having a private chat with Anne Reynolds. Just what is Ferguson up to now? Ali's madness is starting to get worse. She's not sleeping, not eating, and she keeps thinking that there are people watching her. Boomer and Rita are very concerned for Ali. Rita goes to see Dr. Peterson for help, and Dr. Peterson goes to see Ali in the cell. She tries to calm Ali down. She tells Ali that everything is going to be okay. In the dining room, Reb Keane is throwing bits of bread at Ferguson. Parker stands up in the dining room and tells everyone that if anyone goes anywhere near Ferguson, then she will beat the crap out of them. Ferguson stands behind Parker with a big smile on her face. Ruby, still locked up in Mari's basement, is given some water by Mari's men. Ruby tries to kick one of them, but she just ends up getting slapped. The glass of water smashes on the floor and the men leave the basement. Ruby manages to get some broken glass and she starts to use it to cut through her ropes. Dr. Peterson thinks it's now time for her final piece of revenge to take place. Dr. Peterson is going to make it look like that Ali is losing her mind, and then Ali is going to kill herself with a little help from the Mad Doctor. Dr. Peterson comes into work to start a shift and she smuggles in a gun in her handbag. Just what is she going to do? At the same time, Jake, in a very bad way, comes to Wentworth, still off his face on the gear. He decides it's time to get rid of Ferguson once and for all. Mr. Jackson sees the mess that Jake is in and suggests that he goes to see Dr. Peterson. Will drags Jake there and Dr. Peterson takes a look at him. Mr. Jackson leaves them alone. Dr. Peterson can see straight away that Jake is on something. She tries to talk to him to find out what's happening. But when Jake continues to make no sense, Dr. Peterson feels like she has no other option but to go and get Vera. So she leaves to go and get Vera and leaves Jake alone. Jake goes through some drawers in medical to find some sort of weapon. He knocks over Dr. Peterson's handbag and the gun falls out. Jake grabs the gun and heads out of medical and goes looking for Ferguson. Dr. Peterson comes back to medical with Vera and Will, but Jake is nowhere to be seen. Dr. Peterson panics when she sees her handbag knocked over and the gun missing. A photo has also fallen out of her purse and she quickly grabs it. It's a photo of his son, Sean Brody, and Mr. Jackson sees it just before Dr. Peterson gets a chance to get rid of it. Mr. Jackson starts to have a funny feeling about the new doctor. Jake is on the hunt for Ferguson. Vera orders all officers to look out for Jake. Jake sees Ferguson in her unit with Parker, and Jake pulls a gun on them. Ferguson's face drops and asks Jake what is he doing. Jake tells her to shut up and he orders Parker to go into a cell. Jake locks Parker in the cell with the gun pointing at Ferguson the whole time. Vera, Will and a few officers arrive and Jake grabs Ferguson and holds the gun to her head. Jake orders the officers out of the way. He tells Vera that he's taken Ferguson and he is going to get rid of her once and for all. Vera tries to reason with Jake, but Jake tells Vera that Ferguson is poison. It's because of her his life is now in tatters. Will and Vera both tell Jake he's going to regret this if he takes her, but Jake, being off his face and extremely dangerous at this stage, is having none of it. He orders them out of the way, and Jake takes Ferguson down the corridor. Anne Reynolds phones the police and Vera follows Jake, begging him to stop this. They end up out in the yard with all the women there. The women start to cheer and Vera orders the women to shut up. Will orders a lockdown, but Jake tells them no, keep the women here. They have the right to watch Ferguson die after everything she has done to them. The police descend onto the prison and enter the yard to try and talk some sense into Jake. Continuing to hold the gun at Ferguson's head, the police tell Jake that if he shoots Ferguson then they will have no choice but to shoot him too, so it's in his best interest to let Ferguson go. Jake starts to break down crying and Ferguson manages to elbow Jake and quickly gets away. Jake grabs the gun. He looks at all the women who are currently in disbelief with what's happening. Jake tells Frankie and Bridget that he is sorry for causing the explosion. He then turns to Vera and tells her that he is sorry he can't do this anymore, and to tell baby Grace every day that he loves her. Jake then grabs the gun and shoots himself in the head in front of everyone. Everyone's screaming, nobody can believe what is happening. Vera runs over to Jake's dead body on the ground and breaks down screaming, crying in front of everyone. Vera gets back up and she runs inside the prison. Ferguson is in the corridor and Vera runs to Ferguson and attacks her. Will pulls Vera off Ferguson and a very emotional Vera screams at Ferguson, telling her that this is all her fault. Vera continues to scream and cry. Her world has just fallen apart. She did love Jake, she just hated what he became. Before Vera is taken away, Vera screams at Ferguson one last time, telling her that the next time the women lynch her, she will be joining in. The women head back to their units after the carnage, and Boomer finds Ali in her cell having a complete freak out. Ali is screaming at thin air, and Boomer tries to calm her down, but Ali is armed with a shiv and she is screaming for Boomer to get back. Boomer goes into the cell and tells Ali it's going to be okay and she's her friend, but Ali runs at Boomer and stabs Boomer right in the stomach. Ali realises what she's just done. Boomer collapses to the floor in a pool of blood and Ali starts screaming for help.